It's magical. It is. It's huge. And I wouldn't want to be anywhere else right now.
This is the second time today that I have seen a car have to be pushed, and no shade to the driver, but this is just something that you should be aware of. Tim, you're Everyday Astronaut, you're celebrity down here at Starbase. We're upcoming the third launch. Are you excited?
I'm more excited for this one than I've been for the previous two, I think, almost.
Why is that?
I think on our end, it's just like we have our stuff a lot more put together finally. Like we just feel less stressed. Yeah. The less we're thinking about like, our live stream and our cameras and all, like the more I'm able to think about the rocket and think about the mission. And I'm just, because of that, like I'm way more in the mental space of like, I know, just more what to expect and what to be excited about,
We know that Elon is optimistic. We're hoping to reach orbit. What are your predictions?
I think it's going to make all the milestones this time and get to re-entry. I don't even care if it makes it all the way through re-entry. This is a lot more refined. They have a lot of incredibly valuable data from last time. I fully expect to see that booster come back. I fully expect to see a successful landing burn out of it, soft splashdown. I think that's in the bag. I expect to see the 3 milestones of opening the door, propellant transfer, and Raptor relight. I think those are all in the bag. Then it will re-enter, like it's going to re-enter, whether or not it survives in one piece.
This is where the Earth's atmosphere is doing the work to slow us down.
Now, like we said, this plasma field is, what a view. We hope to maintain these views throughout. Starship is so big that we're hoping that the plasma field doesn't entirely blanket the entire vehicle. Right now, it is not. The Starlinks are
still... brought to you by Starlink.
The Starlinks are still communicating.
And that's the part that I'm like 50-50 on, and I don't care as much.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, if it goes through all those other things, then that's great. Re-entry and recovering the upper stages is a long process. Like, if it takes 10 times, I won't be surprised,
Well, and, you have a vested interest in Starship because of Dear Moon. How is that training going?
Well, we're waiting on this thing. This thing has to make some pretty big milestone progress and changes and upgrades before we're even looking at crew accommodations, frankly. It's like we're waiting. That thing could still change.
Yeah.
There's still hardware that could substantially change between now and when we're flying on it. So, SpaceX is taking the cautious approach of like, I'm sure there's some stuff that's ready for crew, obviously with human landing systems. I'm sure they've developed and have a good hardware loop for a lot of those things. But frankly, until that stuff's all more set in stone, we're waiting.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, we know that they've made up to 1,000 changes in between the flights just on Starship. So there's going to be some fine tuning. So is it true that you haven't started really any training yet, other than knowing that you're going to be on Dear Moon?
That's pretty much right. Yeah, we're pretty much just kind of waiting. Yeah. So. I think it'll just be literally like a flip of a switch thing of like we hit this milestone. We feel like we now have the systems in place to actually begin a proper training regimen.
Well, hey everybody, we're out at the Orbital Launch Pad, basically on the mud flap side, is opposite from Highway 4, where most of the people come out here to see Starbase. So we get a much different view of what's going on here. And off to my left, you can see the launch tower and ship 28 on top of booster 10. You can also see the water deluge tanks, those white items off to behind me over here. And then off to the right, you can see the suborbital launch pad. And that's where a lot of the static fires have been done up until recently. And pretty soon that's going to be changing, and they're going to be moving that over to Massey's. So they're going to have a static fire capability there with a flame trench. And that's going to be important because they'll be able to do the cryogenics and also the static fire testing away from this site. So it'll help with the operations here. It'll also help with the public access as well. Now there are two things that are going on here that is very interesting that I don't know, maybe you know about or you've heard a little bit about. We'll start first with the structure right behind me. This small kind of a reinforced concrete structure. You can see some of the plywood and the glass that's facing us. This is a new restroom facility that is under construction. The concrete's been recently poured, and it is designed with a lot of reinforcement, a lot of rebar and heavy concrete because of the launch operations. And on the inside, they're doing a lot of the final work, preparing the bathrooms and also...
Not for us, though.
No, this is for the SpaceX employees. but they're doing that. And there's also a small, like a kitchen area. There's actually an outdoor patio that's going to be underneath this cantilevered roof. And an interesting thing about the glass is that it's hurricane strength, and they think that it's going to be strong enough, but we'll see with the launch coming up here very soon if it survives that, and hopefully it does. Now, the other thing that is interesting is off on this side of the screen, over where the crane is. You can see the crane is laying down right now, and if you look at the very top of the crane, kind of the end point that's on the ground right now, in that area they're preparing the ground with piers and piles. Eventually that's going to be where the second launch tower and orbital launch platform is going to be, and that will allow SpaceX to have more options for doing their testing and operations in this area. And again, that's closer to where the Highway 4 is and a lot of public access. So with the infrastructure that's going to support that, it may be one more thing that starts to limit some of the access that you have coming out here. But from an operational standpoint, it's great that they're going to have 2 towers, 2 launch platforms, and also the cryogenics and the stage 0 support infrastructure to increase the cadence of the Starship. So a lot of activity going on here, and you can actually, as a public, come over to this area to watch this side of the site. You just have to make sure you don't go past the private property signs, and those are very prominently displayed and it's easy to see, but the access that they give you on this side of the site is second to none. So come out, take a look, and let's hope that the launch goes well tomorrow or before this weekend for Ship 28 and Booster 10.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We are back, boots on the ground, less than 3 hours after the Starship launch. One of the things that you were concerned about was how the hurricane-rated glass would hold up.
Exactly, and you can see that right behind me. The plywood, which are kind of like vent panels, have been blown out as part of the launch, but most of the glass panes look like they are there. So any of the temporary plywood is completely gone all around the building, but at least the glass for this launch survived.
And we'll remind people this is a bathroom actually that SpaceX is working on for its employees, and you can probably bet that with the construction of the second tower in operation, who knows, SpaceX might even need to hire more people.
They probably will. I mean, the operations here are only going to get more, and they're going to need more and more people. So if you're interested in working for SpaceX, or if you're a contractor doing a lot of construction, come out here. I'm sure they could use your help.
Well, and why don't we pivot for a second here, and we're just going to take a look at the launch tower, which there's no more full stack.
It's gone.
Ship 28, Booster 10, RIP, but they are gone. And it's always surreal to come back and just, it's weird.
It is.
It's not a render, folks. This is real life, and everything looks really good, I would say. I mean, minimal damage, if any. The pad looks great.
The pad looks good. The launch mount looks good. The quick disconnect for the ship looks good as well. The chopsticks have been lowered back down to the ground, so that's a great sign that they are operational. The tanks for the water deluge, that looks like it's did pretty well also. And the reinforcements of the vertical tanks look like they did their job too. There's maybe, I don't know if those are remnants of some of the dents or not, but it looks like they held firm, which is great.
Yeah. I think it's really cool. They opened the road almost immediately, whereas the
Right.
last time we had to wait a little bit.
Right. This was, minutes after it had departed the area, they had opened the road, which is great. The other thing is just looking around at the debris field, there's not a whole lot, which is another great thing to see.
Yeah, not a whole lot of souvenirs for us nerds. The only thing, there was a lot of traffic getting here.
Yeah,
So definitely with spring break, and I think just more enthusiasm and awareness about the launches. I think a lot of people came here for the first time.
Yep, absolutely. And they got a great show. The Mother Nature at least cooperated by clearing the skies enough so we could see it heading up and almost to the hot staging.
Thank goodness for Starlink and for SpaceX's good feed, because we were definitely having trouble seeing it from Margaritaville. And just one last question, I'm thinking that they could pull off another launch in 2 months. What about you?
I think so. They're going to have to do some of the mishap for the booster and the ship, figure out what happened. So they'll go through that process. But at least stage 0 looks very good, even better than IFT2. So that's a great indicator that they're getting this dialed in.
But, a mishap investigation is not abnormal, but this one, it shouldn't take nearly as long because so much less went wrong.
Possibly. I still think they have to go through a process, and it's a cooperative one between SpaceX and the FAA. It's not the FAA sending out their team of inspectors and say, open your books, let's see. They work back together, and SpaceX comes up with what were the problems, what are the mitigations. They go through that process again, and then obviously they're learning, and the FAA is learning as well. But it is a process that has to happen, and I think probably 2 months is probably reasonable, but we'll see.
Now, I'm curious. I just did a 0G flight. Yes, I puked my brains out. Have you done 0G yet?
Actually, I've never done 0G.
Oh my gosh.
Besides in a little plane, like 10 seconds of
But you've also done the flip side, which is the high G forces.
Yeah, I've done high Gs.
How does your body respond to that?
Pretty well, surprisingly.
Okay.
I grew up liking roller coasters and stuff, but I don't know if that translates, and for me, I think it somewhat, reasonably. I didn't get dizzy or sick or any, no nauseousness both times with Jared.
Do you get car sick?
I have once, and that's a weird thing. Once that clicks for the first time,
right.
I didn't know what people experienced. I was dumb. I was in the mountains in Peruvia on my phone playing a game,
that's what
going
happens.
like this, and all of a sudden, it just clicked, and I was like,
yeah,
this is horrible. So, I know now to, at least what that is and what to not try to do, and just have some... keep your eyes at the horizon and stuff sometimes.
So that was me 70% of the 0G flight. It's definitely not for everyone. Hopefully you're able to, get some of that training, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of training you have for Dear Moon.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you think about that every day? Is that still crazy to you?
Not every day, but when I stop and think about it and remember oh yeah, that's still that's a thing that I have to think about, then it is crazy.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm still literally thinking about the next video I'm making.
Right, right.
The daily tasks and the daily things, and it's just once that I'm trying to get as much of that stuff prioritized as possible now, because as soon as that call comes in that we're going to be training,
you're going to be
then it's all out the window. So
right.
It's I need to maximize and do as much as I can now before that does take over my it'll probably take over 6 months to a year of my life,
Right. Well, and
until it does.
I'm so inspired by everything you've done. I feel like I'm trying to get to a point with my channel. I'm so proud of your success. You just had your Astro Awards. And one of the things that you posted on X recently is that some people are saying, where did Tim go? Where's his content? Let's set the record straight here on Boca Chica Beach.
Yeah, that's the worst. That is the worst comment, because it means that that frankly means that either the YouTube algorithm or my audience is failing me, because I've been producing videos every month since 2017. It's the same upload schedule. I haven't. It's I didn't change, you changed almost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's almost what it feels like to me. However, caveat, lately I have been trying to bring new people in.
Right.
Everyday Astronaut's goal is to bring space down to Earth for everyday people. Get people that don't even know they're excited. So I have been trying some videos that are more those hey, why don't they launch rockets from mountains?
Yeah.
Why don't they launch rockets from airplanes?
I like
more
that.
general things. And I think a lot of my audience, they're teaching me things. My audience is extreme. I love that. They're nerdy. They know all the details.
Same.
And it's great. It's incredible. But I do understand that those videos might not be for them. And I'm pretty sure the YouTube algorithm goes oh, you didn't watch this, this, and this. We're just not even going to show you any new content. Right. So because I had been doing more general, it's funny, I do a Starship video and it's There they all are. There's everybody.
Same for me.
So it's hard because I don't want to, like, obviously I care about this.
Yeah.
Enough to invest my entire life savings into covering this stuff.
Right.
But there are other things out there, and I do want to constantly bring people into this world and get people excited about this and understand this and appreciate the engineering decisions, you know?
Well, you and I both don't have a background in this, but I'm so impressed with what you've been able to learn and educate people, and it really is. It's a lot to take in, and, you know, a lot of complex subjects here with rocket science.
Yeah. And the constant decisions, and keeping up with SpaceX's decision-making is a task of many observers. I mean, it's funny, I posted that video about the changes that were made, and my friends in a tank watcher showed me, you know, they have an article that's like 1,000 times more in depth. I'm just like, this is insane that people from the outside are able to gather all this information. Right. And then you think about that amount of info, and then you think about the people behind closed doors, all the little changes they're making and all the little tweaks and all the decisions they're making for these trade studies. It's just like, I can't even begin to imagine. When
you make a video that, you know, is kind of, you know, rocket engines 101 or whatever, very informative, do you still find it hard to bring it down to earth and make it simple?
Oh yeah. It's, but I always have that, and unfortunately, you know, from the Astro Awards, we lost a valuable team member, a friend of ours, who was like the ultimate champion of all script reads, was always like, does the average person understand this? And I still always hear that when I'm scripting. It's like, and you know, it's funny because that, to me, like, that was supposed to be my gig.
Right.
Does the average person? But he was always the next level champion of that. And so in Andy's honor, I will always remember, like, does the average person understand this? You know.
Right.
And so it's always a constant, like, and I'm always thinking about my family that like aren't aerospace enthusiasts.
Right.
You know, my nephews, my niece. You know, like people that are just casual observers.
Right.
Will they understand the words that come out of my mouth?
Yes.
You know, and if I start there every time, at least it'll help be some kind of compass.
Right. Will they understand what you're wearing? Methyloxynorminal. Will they get it?
Will they get it? If not, then I need to do a better job, you know? Although those are fairly inside, you know what I mean? That's a little inside joke.
Inside joke, yeah. But the space nerds get it.
The space nerds get it.
Anything else, Joe, that maybe I missed?
But we talk about what the booster has to do. We talk about what the ship has to do. But what about stage 0 tomorrow?
I think stage 0 did, in my opinion, from the outside, looks like it did great last time compared to the first time. Like the improvement from first to second was massive. So even if it's a slight improvement from 2, I think it's already looking good. I feel like, if you think about it, they fired the booster so quickly after launch. Like, it was insane. It was within weeks, you know, a handful of weeks after that launch, they had a static fire already on there. So I think the pad is capable of fairly quick cadence. I don't think it's going to be months turnaround on the pad anymore. I think they're to the point of it works good enough, you know, and will they iterate on this? Of course. Yeah. Of course they will, because that's what they do. But they have a system that works, and they have a system that seems to be able to withhold, you know, a reasonable pace.
Now, one of your most popular series, of course, is the tour of Starbase with the man himself. Do you have another one in the works?
Not in the works with Elon right now. There is some other exciting stuff coming to the channel.
So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. But I always have an open invitation. You know, I feel like I don't want to bug him about that kind of stuff, but I would love to do it again. There's been a lot of changes out here, a lot of changes. Seeing a full stack, I mean, like, come on.
Yeah.
It's awesome, and I would love to, but yeah, you know, he's a busy man.
He's a little busy. This is my 8th trip to Starbase, and it's just incredible to see the changes every day almost.
I can't keep up.
It's crazy.
The Star Factory, last time I saw it was like physically half the height.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the part that's up near the road now is like, pictures don't do it. You know, I've seen a million pictures. There's some incredible photographers out here.
You have to be down here.
It. When you see it in person, you're like, this is a huge, huge operation.
Absolutely. And
it's growing, like, exponentially.
I know, right. And there's so many misconceptions. People are like, is it free? How do I get a tour? And I'm like, you give it to yourself.
Yes, yes. And not 90, but actually on a given day, probably 50% of the cars coming down this road don't even know what this is. They think it's some oil factory thing. They have no idea.
That's crazy.
And that's great. That's the fun part of it. Like, the average person can be right here, and you see families out enjoying the beach, and some of them might have nothing to do with this.
Well, I was interviewed recently on Network News a little bit about Starship, and it really is something that I'm surprised more people don't know about or are talking about. Do you see that not enough people know about Starship, about the mission to Mars?
No idea. Yeah, they have. I mean, and it'll slap them in the face one day when this rocket is landing humans on the moon. I think will be the first big awakening of like, oh, that's what this is doing. But so far, the normal coverage is Elon Musk's giant rocket explodes again. You know, like that's the headline, and people forget that SpaceX is more than one human. There's thousands of incredibly talented, hardworking engineers.
Yeah.
And that they don't understand that it's okay to fail, that's literally like the first goal, the first launch was like get it off of the pad and don't have it blow up the pad. Anything beyond that's a success. And they see like, it's just like people forget that there's a prototype, the idea of a prototype, and that there's the idea of a test article. Like that's what these are today. These are not, I'm not riding on that thing. I'm not riding on probably anything like that. By the time humans are flying on this thing, it'll be completely different. This is a freedom that the space shuttle did not have.
Yeah,
NASA, when they engineered the space shuttle, had to nail it because it required humans to fly it.
Right.
So if they didn't nail the engineering on that first flight, which they almost didn't, the first flight of the shuttle was within way too close calls. Like, there's a very good chance we would have lost John Young and I'm totally blanking on his name on the. Thank you, Griffin on the first. I love. Thank you on the first launch. Like there was it almost happened.
Right.
You know.
Absolutely.
And there was a risk posture that they had to accept because that's the only way they could fly the shuttle to get data.
Yeah.
They don't have to do that, and they're not beholden to so many of the bureaucracies of flying on taxpayer money. SLS, even though it's completely uncrewed for its first flight, from the optics, if that had failed, would have been much more detrimental than this.
Right.
It's a different thing, and it shocks me that people don't understand that it's a different thing.
Right.
Like when people do a complete, and I'm guilty of doing an A/B comparison of systems like this, but like you have to put them each into their own perspective because they are completely different programs, completely different systems, and with different goals in the long run.
Right, and that is why you and I have channels, and we're trying to inform the masses.
Trying to teach you guys.
Yeah, awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for the interview.
My pleasure,
it's great to see you again.
Enjoy the beach. Make sure wear sunscreen, everyone. I just schlepped up again. I'm half as shiny as a pearl out here, but yeah, sunscreen's important. Otherwise, it's not a fun day tomorrow.
Oh, and the bug spray, but it's pretty good so far, actually, surprisingly. The wind helps. Thank you so much,
Tim. Of course,
Tim.
good seeing you.
Everyday Astronaut, if you don't follow him, but I'm sure you do. So
I do see a shirt over there.
Awesome.
Nice shirt.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank you, seriously.
If you guys enjoyed this video and all of my Starship coverage, please subscribe to Ellie in Space. It's completely free, and that way you won't miss any future videos. If you want to take it a step further, please consider signing up for my Patreon. YouTube revenue can be very unpredictable and hit or miss, and you guys on my Patreon are why I'm able to take these trips and help me experience the life that I'm very thankful to live down here at Starbase and many of the other places that I've gone to report for the channel and the places that I'll be going in the future.